Hello everyone, it's Richard Lewis here again with another video, and today on the channel I'm going to be talking about a subject I'm actually known for covering for. It's not one I relish talking about, but it seems to continually rear its head, and it's reared its head again. And there are some allegations of match fixing now in the Chinese scene. Now I just want to add right at the start, these are allegations. They certainly look to be without foundation, and they involve TyLoo, the best known Chinese team, the most successful Chinese team. It would be a massive blow to international Counter-Strike if there was anything to this, but certainly on the basis of all the evidence that's been leaked into the public domain, it doesn't look like there is anything to this. I'll add that as somebody that has covered, in particular, Chinese Counter-Strike, honestly, on the channel, I've talked about how good it's going to be if we can get an established presence out in the Chinese region for Counter-Strike, but the issue we've got is stuff like this. There's so much going on behind the scenes, criminal activity, unethical activity, players being mistreated. I mean, the whole thing's a nightmare from start to finish, honestly, out in China, and there's nobody who has the authority to really do anything about it. You know, the Chinese scene, much like China as a whole, it governs itself, and I don't think we're ready to tackle some of the problems that are likely to come out of a strong professional scene in China. That being said, for casuals and viewer numbers and everything else, money invested in the game, it's going to be brilliant. So it's very much the rough and the smooth. But anyway, so this started taking place on the 25th of October. This whole story, there was an anonymous Weibo account, which is sort of like the Chinese equivalent of Facebook. And it was called "Wish There Was No Match Fixing in Chinese CSGO," and what they leaked into the public domain was alleged proof that TyLoo had been involved in match fixing, and they had text supposedly between a known match fixer and Captain Mo, you know, the legendary captain of TyLoo, you know, one of the long-term Chinese players. We can show you those pictures here, and I've had a Chinese colleague look at these and verify the translation. You can see it's Captain Mo talking to someone called Meow, who, again, it's been purported, you know, no idea if it's true or not, that Meow has been involved in arranging matches to be fixed. He's a go-between between high-profile bettors, wealthy money men, and pro players, supposedly. Again, with China being such a hard region to penetrate and dig into, even somebody like myself who's well connected couldn't tell you the whole story about that and whether or not that's true. But in these texts, you can see it says, Mo says, Hong Kong told us that they have to get 12 points and told us to give some points. And Meow said, well, what do you think? 10 to 12 points like cash last time. And Mo agrees. And then Mo says, we don't need your call-outs today, though. Haha, implying there has been some sort of collusion in a game in the past where they've shaved points. And again, this is when you have spread betting. This is one of the things that I've talked about. When you have spread betting in Counter-Strike, you don't even need to throw a whole game. You can just have a bunch of rounds that seemingly you make a bunch of mistakes on, close out the game, win, and the game looks close, and it's like, oh God, we nearly messed up there. But actually, it would be very easy to give rounds away if you were a far superior player compared to an inferior player. It's definitely a kind of betting trend that you need to be very careful about, and betting platforms need to be careful about. Anyway, you can see here, Mo also says, today I learned people lose money once they bet on this website. Only 1,200 won from a 10K bet, which, again, implies he placed a bet on a game, one of the games he was involved in, and then Meow goes, we won't let you lose money, brother. It won't happen. And Mo says, scared the life out of me. I won't bet anymore. Today I only bet after your confirmation. And then Meow says, it won't happen, but there will be delays. Then there was talks with this Meow guy about we are getting DDoSed in the National Cup tonight. Any solutions? This is a classic thing that happens in games where there's bets on. If the IP gets leaked, then angry bettors who are going to lose money will DDoS, so the game doesn't stand, and you have to start over at a later date. That was a classic in 2014. And you can see they discuss the IP and everything else. And Mo says, we're not winning. And Meow says, are you getting DDoS once you have the score lead? And Mo says, yes, when we have multiple rounds continuously, we get DDoS. Now the internet is down entirely. So anyway, those screenshots obviously very incriminating if you are to take them at face value. This prompts Mo to release a statement on the 26th of October after the thread was out there. It was blowing up on Weibo. It was blowing up on Taibo, which is like the equivalent of Chinese Reddit. Mods were removing it. It looked really, really ugly. And then Mo came in and released a statement that's been translated. And once again, I've had this looked at. This statement is genuine. And you can see here it goes, before explaining things, this is Mo's words, I'd like to introduce a person who goes by the name Zhao Jin, the so-called behind-the-scenes guy in the above screenshot. We call him Meow within the scene, and he's from Shanghai. He has been involved in the Chinese CSGO scene for a long time and is still involved to this day. If I recall correctly, we knew each other in 2015 when he was the person in charge inside mainland China for Mixbot. He's responsible for contacting us regarding officials and also for some SEA tournaments. So again, the time frame is starting to align. You can see that people said it was match fixing activity in 2015. There was a lot of shit going on back then in Europe and America in 2014 and 2015. So God only knows what was happening in China. And he says, you guys might have heard of the incident that happened in 2015 from Weibo and Taiba recently. I didn't respond immediately because this is related to TyLoo's reputation. Throughout these few years, there have been numerous people who contacted us for match fixing, from giving us money to threatening us. Initially, they contacted the TyLoo management but got refused, and later contacted the players directly. However, no matter what methods they use, we have always refused without a doubt because we don't want to waste our years of dedication in TyLoo. Again, this is quite common in Chinese Counter-Strike from what I understand. I've done another 2 videos about Chinese match fixing and how absurd it's got. Obviously, I work closely with ESIC, the Esports Integrity Coalition. We talk a lot. The amount of fixes and throws in Chinese Counter-Strike is unreal, and it's described by sources over there as amateur hour. They're really not doing anything to hide it on the level you would expect. And equally, no one in China is that interested in fixing the problem. This is just endemic to the scene, apparently. So it's just something you have to live with. Anyway, Mo goes on to say, it all started when we were competing in Hong Kong's Zotac Cup in August. Zhao Jin started to contact me about possibilities in working with them in terms of match fixing. And I answered, we are starting to rise in the rankings and we aim to grow further as a team, and there is no way that we will match fix. At around 5 p.m. 2 days ago, on the 24th of October, I got a phone call from a number in Shanghai who claimed to be someone involved in match fixing. And then there's a dialogue here, and it goes, him, I hope the 3 Chinese players on TyLoo can work with us to match fix. Me, that won't happen. He then goes, I have screenshots of your conversations with Zhao Jin. And that means the ones we've just read. Basically, what they were supposedly doing here is they were blackmailing Captain Mo into forcing him to fix games because they had come across these screenshots. And then you can see Mo says here, after the phone call, the person added my WeChat and sent me all the screenshots that you guys have seen publicly. And Mo asks, what do they imply? And he says, well, many people will understand what they imply. And then Mo goes, are you threatening me? And he goes, well, I cannot force you if you want to refuse working with me. But if you do, you will retire soon. So Mo continues saying, afterwards, when I contacted Zhao Jin to ask what's going on, similar to that anonymous person, he told me to work with him in match fixing, and I rejected it yet again. He said someone has paid him for the screenshots, and he will not care about what happens next. Throughout the years, TyLoo has taught us not to be involved in match fixing. At the same time, Valve has also organized meetings and will participate in teams not to match fix when we play outside of China. When Jason, that was TyLoo's boss, took over, he noted if any players are found to be involved in match fixing, they will be irrelevant in the Chinese CSGO scene forever. Now, this, by the way, is not an idle threat. If TyLoo want to have you shut out of Chinese Counter-Strike, you absolutely can. Again, I've done a video about this in the past. The Chinese scene is so interconnected that if you misbehave at an organization, or if an organization takes a strong dislike to you, that's it. Game fucking over. They tell all the other orgs, don't pick him up. They tell all the tournaments, this guy can't play, and that's it. Your career ends until you're back in everyone's favor. So certainly, if you upset TyLoo or any other major organization with pull in the Chinese scene, yeah, forget about it. Your career is done. Mo goes on to say, I've always remembered this in my heart. He says, since I became a professional player, I have never tried to obtain money dishonestly, and I have never done anything that damages TyLoo's interests. I'm really sad about the situation in the current Chinese CSGO scene because of the fact that I will get threatened once I reject a match fix. I don't want to see our supporters become disappointed while the actual people involved in match fixing stood up to say that they wish there was no match fixing in Chinese CSGO. The reason we have foregone so much financial benefit is to protect our reputation and be able to stand straight in front of our supporters. Although TyLoo management has assured me I don't have to reply to such accusations which do not have any legal basis, I still feel the need to explain things clearly. It is because I've sacrificed too much for my passion in Counter-Strike. During Chinese New Year last year, when people were spending time with their family, we were playing officials outside of China. I miss my family. Obviously, Chinese New Year is a very big deal to Chinese people. It certainly is a sacrifice. It's not like missing, a party or whatever, I just wish to do my best to contribute to the Chinese CSGO scene. People who did nothing wrong won't be afraid of others framing them. I will stress again that we are not involved in match fixing. For those people who claim to be doing something good for Chinese CSGO, please do not disturb us anymore. We will not compromise, and we will not match fix. Thank you. Now, as I said, the conversation that we first saw is pretty incriminating, is pretty bad. Mo put his own conversations out there, and you can see them here. And basically, this is the guy saying, I want to work with you guys. He says, that's not possible. I'll post these screenshots if you don't. I've talked to other players on your team, blah, 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 blah. This pretty much aligns with what Mo is saying. Now, where I sort of start to think, I don't know about this one, Mo doesn't say that those original conversations are fake. He doesn't say that they're out of context. He doesn't really address the content of those conversations with which he's being blackmailed. Those alone do not look good. What I would say is, I think at the very least, what you can say Mo is guilty of is not notifying people that he was being tapped up by other people who wanted him to fix matches. Now, just as a bit of general advice, if you're a pro player and you happen to stumble across this, absolutely, if anybody says, I want you to fix this game, tell somebody, tell your manager, make sure people know you're not about that, publicly expose them. Certainly don't keep them on Steam friends, don't keep in contact with these people. You have to distance yourself and publicly out these people to stop it happening. Silence, unfortunately, is a form of defense in these situations. You enable them to reach out to the next player and the next player and the next player. You must stop these people doing what they're doing. You cannot protect them by being silent. Anyway, there was a follow-up, and this was Dede, who you'll also know from TyLoo, and he posted a response, and he said, as a professional player, I'd like to express my personal beliefs, specifically fulfilling work ethics and professional conduct. I have always been passionate and dedicated in pursuing my own dreams and have never forgotten my initial aspirations and where I started. TyLoo is what led me to start my journey in competitive gaming. We've been through many things and have taken baby steps during the process. When we have good results, there are countless appreciations and encouragements from our supporters, but we've also endured the pressure of being laughed at and criticized. I do not wish to comment on the incident in 2017 when the best TyLoo rosters decided to part ways. That's, again, in one of my videos. You can go find it if you want. At least in some day after my retirement, I won't regret when I think back about the journey. As long as I'm still in TyLoo, I will always work hard and remind myself not to give up despite how out of form, how noob I am. We will do our best in future tournaments. Of course, these are just words to express my feelings. I felt depressed for a long time. I don't wish to be motivated in the future, so I remind myself with these words at all times. I haven't posted on Weibo for a long time. Thanks for everyone's love, understanding, and care. So this all pertains again to this allegation that comes that, you know, there was some match fixing, and again, there was more proof posted off the back of this from Dede, where this account calling himself Amadeus, another one of the Shanghai match fixers, saying this: you are making it out as if I'm the bad guy. They've asked me to sell them the screenshots that I got from half a year ago. I've told others I don't want to disrupt our relationship, but those people directly told me about how much I've helped TyLoo, yet they've never even paid for my meals once. What kind of friend is this? This should really start giving you an inkling, by the way, about the Chinese scene and how fucking incestuous it is and weird it is. Why the fuck would you be taking me out for meals? Why would I be hanging out with you if you're a known better, you know? Very strange. And also as well, if you go through this, he keeps talking about VG, and he says, I have always thought VG are bad guys, but at least they know how it works. You guys don't. When I look back, I find it undeserving. I can stop making money, but don't treat me like a dumbass. So immediately this also incriminates VG. What does that statement mean? They know how it works. Does that mean that they were happy to fix games? You know, what's going on? So lots of stuff to kind of digest here. It doesn't seem to have blown up, honestly. That's the thing that I find weird, because while, sure, by all means, Captain Mo and Dede have both posted proof that they have resisted being influenced by match fixers here in 2018, it doesn't explain the original 2015 screenshots that are being touted and being used to blackmail Captain Mo. And there are questions. There are questions that need to be answered. I don't think anyone's going to even be in a position to ask them, because this is Chinese Counter-Strike. It's Chinese esports. Where the fuck do we go from there, you know? So, you know, this is something that's bubbling up under the surface. I don't know if it's just going to go away. I'd like to think it wouldn't. I think there's enough there for Valve to get involved, for ESIC to get involved, people to have a long, hard look at what's going on over in Chinese Counter-Strike. And certainly if TyLoo, pretty much the international ambassadors for China in the Counter-Strike scene, are in any way incriminated in match fixing, if they're not denying that those screenshots are faked. So yes, that's certainly something that's going to have to be addressed. Now, obviously, I'm going to reach out to my Chinese sources and try and dig into this and try and find out more information. But yeah, this is a developing story. But I wanted to get it all out there because a lot of this seemed to die on Reddit, and I want you guys to know about it. So there it is. That's some of the news. Hopefully, it doesn't mean what I think it all means. Hopefully, those original screenshots are fake or embellished or out of context or something, and TyLoo get to keep their good names. We don't need to worry about any more of this nonsense, this match-fixing nonsense. And certainly we can say that TyLoo have been approached and resisted it here in the present, which is a good sign that we're moving away from that match-fixing culture. Anyway, thanks a lot for watching the video. You take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time.